Today in this lecture we will discuss the role of cardiovascular reflex stimulation of the ADH, or the release of ADH, antidiuretic hormone, from the posterior pituitary with the help of cardiovascular reflex stimulation or the cardiovascular reflexes. In our last few lectures we have discussed in detail the release of antidiuretic hormone from the posterior pituitary gland, and we discussed in detail that the antidiuretic hormone is formed in the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus, and then it comes into the posterior pituitary and is released in the blood. And the signal for the release of the antidiuretic hormone comes from the osmoreceptors that are present in the hypothalamus. The osmoreceptors detect the plasma osmolarity, and with the help of changes that are detected in the osmolarity of the plasma, signals are transmitted to the supraoptic paraventricular nuclei, and then the release of ADH from the posterior pituitary gland. But apart from the hypothalamus and these osmoreceptors, there is another area in the brain around the third ventricle which is known as the AV3V area, or the arterioventricular third ventricular area. This area has the subphrenical organ in the upper part, the organum vasculosum in the lower part, which is a part of the lamina terminalis, and in between them is the median preoptic nucleus. Now, the importance of the AV3V area is that the median preoptic nucleus receives signals not only from the subphrenical organ and organum vasculosum, but also from the areas of the brain which controls the blood pressure. So the blood pressure controlling areas also send signals to the median preoptic nucleus. And this median preoptic nucleus is then connected with the hypothalamus and the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. And with the changes detected in the blood pressure, the release of antidiuretic hormone can be stimulated. So today we are discussing in detail this component of the ADH release. And the cardiovascular reflex stimulation includes the arterial baroreceptor reflexes and the cardiopulmonary reflexes. The arterial baroreceptor reflexes and the cardiopulmonary reflexes, they originate in the arch of the aorta, in the high pressure and the low pressure areas like arch of aorta, carotid sinus, and the right atria or the atria. These areas detect changes in the arterial pressure, and then they transmit these changes with the help of vagus nerve and glossopharyngeal nerve to the tractus solitarius nucleus, and from the tractus solitarius the signals are sent to the hypothalamus. Now the main changes that are detected by the cardiovascular reflexes or the arterial and cardiopulmonary reflexes are changes in the arterial pressure and changes in the volume of blood. So any change in the arterial pressure or change in the volume of blood is detected in these areas, in the arch of the aorta, carotid sinus, and atria, and then the signals are sent with the help of vagus and glossopharyngeal nerve through the tractus solitarius to the hypothalamus through this pathway, and then it helps in the release of antidiuretic hormone. So the end result is that not only osmolarity, but changes in the arterial pressure, and changes in the blood volume can also have an effect on the antidiuretic hormone. And it is important because if there is hemorrhage or there is loss of blood, or there is low arterial pressure, then it leads to release of antidiuretic hormone, apart from a lot of other changes which we have discussed in detail in the cardiovascular system. And the ADH release leads to reabsorption of lots of water from the kidneys, and reabsorption of water leads to somewhat recovery of the arterial pressure and somewhat recovery of the plasma or blood volume. At the same time, it leads to correction of the osmolarity of the plasma. Now in the next lecture we will compare the release of ADH with the help of plasma osmolarity changes, and release of ADH with changes in the plasma volume or changes in the arterial pressure. So that's all about the cardiovascular reflex stimulation of the antidiuretic hormone. Thanks a lot for watching the video.